Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to be talking about something that I think is super fascinating, and that is aging.
Okay.
Um, More specifically, brain aging.
Right.
And we have got a super cool study to dive into.
Oh, yeah.
And this study looks at mice brains, and they mapped out 35% of the mouse brain,
Wow.
which is pretty incredible.
That's amazing.
And they looked at it cell by cell. They used a bunch of different really high-tech methods like single-cell RNA sequencing
Right.
and spatial transcriptomics to really get a complete picture of what's going on.
Wow.
And they looked at both male and female mice of different ages.
That's fantastic.
So this is a very comprehensive study.
Yes.
And it, kind of begs the question, what if we could not only understand how our brains age, but actually find ways to slow it down or even reverse it?
Yeah. That's a really an interesting thought, isn't it? Like, what if we could actually intervene in that process? And I think this study really provides some clues about that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm already like, my mind is going in a million directions. So, maybe we should start by you mentioned spatial transcriptomics.
Yes.
Like, what is that?
So spatial transcriptomics, it's basically a way to see where genes are being expressed or activated within a tissue.
Okay.
You can kind of think of it like a GPS for gene activity.
Okay.
So it tells us which genes are turned on or off
Got it.
in different parts of the brain as it ages.
Okay.
So it gives us this really fine-grained spatial map of what's happening
Cool.
at a molecular level.
Okay. So let's start with kind of like the basics then. Like, how do we even define brain aging?
So brain aging, it's a complex process, right? It's not just one thing.
Right.
And this study really reinforces a lot of what we already know about the hallmarks of brain aging.
Okay.
So things like stem cell exhaustion, the brain's ability to generate new neurons declines.
Oh, that makes sense.
Increased inflammation. Yeah.
So, there's more inflammation in the brain as we age. And then also the networks in our brains sort of start to deteriorate. The connections between neurons weaken.
Okay.
And that can lead to, cognitive decline.
Right.
And then also, nutrient signaling. So how our brains use and respond to nutrients, that also changes with age.
Okay, so this is giving me a little bit of like an overview of kind of big picture things that changed.
Great.
But now I want to know, like, what did they see in the study? Like, what were some of the specific things that they found?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things about this study is that because they had this really detailed cellular level data, they could actually see how these processes, these hallmarks of aging were playing out at the cellular level.
Okay.
So for example, with the stem cell exhaustion, they found a significant decrease in the number of immature neurons in the dentate gyrus.
Okay.
And the dentate gyrus is a part of the brain that's really important for forming new memories.
So the fact that there are fewer new neurons being generated there could help explain why, learning and memory can become more challenging as we get older.
Okay, so fewer new brain cells are being made, which means that learning and memory are harder.
Potentially, yeah.
Got it.
And then with inflammation, they found an increase in microglia. Microglia, which are basically brain's immune cells.
Okay.
And these microglia were showing a pro-inflammatory profile in the older mice.
Okay, so like more likely to cause inflammation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they even found specific types of microglia that were much more common in the older brains.
Okay.
And these microglia expressed markers of senescence, which is basically cellular aging.
Okay, so these microglia, they're not just like hanging out. They're like actively, getting older and causing inflammation.
Right. They're contributing to that inflammatory environment.
Got it. Okay, so we've got the stem cell exhaustion.
Yeah.
We've got the inflammation.
Oh, wow.
What about the networks weakening?
Right. So the networks in our brains, they rely on a fatty substance called myelin.
Myelin.
Which basically acts as insulation around the nerve fibers.
Okay.
So it helps signals travel more efficiently. And what they found in the study was that there was a decline in myelin production.
Okay.
So they found fewer new myelin-forming cells called oligodendrocytes in the older mice.
Oligodendrocytes, got it.
And even the existing oligodendrocytes weren't functioning as well as they should.
Oh.
So they were seeing changes in gene expression in those cells.
Okay, so it's like a double whammy then.
Right.
You're not making enough new myelin.
Yeah.
And then what you do have is starting to like break down.
Right. It's not working as well.
Okay.
And so that can lead to, slower processing speeds,
Right.
Cognitive decline.
Makes sense. Okay. And then the last one was nutrient signaling.
Right. Nutrient signaling.
So what's going on there?
So for this, the researchers, they focused on the hypothalamus.
The hypothalamus?
Which is a part of the brain that's really important for regulating things like hunger, sleep hormone balance.
Okay.
And they found significant changes in gene expression in specific types of neurons within the hypothalamus,
Okay.
suggesting that there's this strong link between changes in metabolism
Okay.
and brain aging.
Interesting.
For example, they found increased expression of MHCI genes in certain neurons that are involved in satiety.
MHCI genes.
MHCI genes, yeah.
Okay. Now those sound familiar, but refresh my memory. What are those again?
So MHCI genes, they're typically associated with immune cells.
Okay.
So it's kind of surprising to see them upregulated in neurons.
Okay. So immune genes in the brain. That's interesting.
Right. And it suggests that there's this really complex interplay
Yeah. between
the immune system and brain cells that we're only just beginning to understand.
Wow. There's a lot to take in already, and it's so fascinating.
It is.
So this is like a big picture overview of what's happening in the brain as we age. But what's really cool about this study is that they were able to look at how different cell types age differently.
Exactly.
So can we talk about that? Like, what are some of the cell-specific changes that they saw?
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into that.
Okay, cool.
Because there are some really fascinating findings there.
Awesome. I can't wait.
All right. So one of the cell types that really stood out were the endothelial cells.
Okay.
So remember, those are the cells that line the blood vessels in the brain.
Got it.
And they actually showed the largest number of age-related changes in gene expression.
Really?
Compared to any other cell type.
Wow. Okay. So the blood vessels are really changing a lot with age.
They are.
Okay.
So for example, they saw increased expression of a gene called RASGRAF2.
RASGRAF2.
Which might protect against cell death.
Okay.
But they also saw an increase in HDAC9, which is linked to damage in endothelial cells.
Oh.
So it's like there's this sort of balance going on between protective and damaging factors. They also saw changes in genes like FMO1 and FMO2.
FMO1, FMO2.
Which have been associated with various neurological diseases.
Oh, okay. So that's a little concerning.
Yeah, and it highlights the fact that these blood vessels, even though they're so important for delivering nutrients and oxygen to the brain,
right,
they themselves are vulnerable to the aging process.
Got it. Okay, so the pipes themselves can get damaged.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just the endothelial cells themselves.
Oh.
Remember parasites?
Parasites.
Those cells that support blood vessels?
Right.
Well, the study found a more pronounced loss of parasites than endothelial cells.
Really?
In older mice.
Wow. Okay, so it's like the scaffolding around the pipes is weakening even faster than the pipes themselves?
Exactly.
Oh, that's not good.
So it really highlights the interconnectedness of everything in the brain.
Right.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk more about those microglia.
Okay, the microbes.
The brain's resident immune cells.
Right, the ones that are maybe causing more trouble than they're preventing as we get older.
Right, potentially.
Okay. What else do they find out about the microglia?
So they found specific microglia clusters that became much more common in the older brains.
Okay.
And these microglia were expressing higher levels of genes that are involved in inflammatory responses.
Okay.
And pumping out inflammatory signals called cytokines.
Oh, so they're like really contributing to the inflammation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Genes like ILDR2, CCL3, CCL4, and UPK1B.
Okay.
All associated with inflammation.
Got it.
They were much more active in these microglia clusters.
Wow. Okay, so inflammation is definitely a key player here.
It seems to be a major driver of these changes.
Got it. Okay, so what about other types of cells in the brain, like support cells, like astrocytes?
Yes. Astrocytes, they also show signs of aging.
Okay.
But in more diverse ways.
Okay.
Some astrocyte populations showed signs of senescence, which basically means they're entering a state of irreversible cell cycle arrest.
So they're done, they're not dividing anymore.
Yeah, they've kind of hit a biological brick wall.
Okay.
Other astrocyte types, they displayed altered nutrient signaling,
okay,
which could disrupt the delicate balance of energy and resources in the brain.
Interesting.
And then there are some lesser-known cell types in the brain that also show age-related changes.
Okay, like what?
For example, tannocytes.
Tannocytes.
These are specialized cells that line the third ventricle,
okay,
which is a fluid-filled space in the brain.
Got it.
And the study found an age-related decline in a particular subtype of tannicyte
Okay.
that might have stem cell potential.
Wait, hold on. You're saying there might be stem cells hiding out in these tannicytes?
That's what the data suggests.
And they're declining as we age?
Yes.
Oh, it's fascinating.
And it's particularly interesting because this decline in potential stem cells could contribute to the brain's reduced ability to repair and regenerate itself over time.
Okay, so we're losing brain cells. The ones we have are inflamed. The networks are breaking down, and even the potential for repair is diminishing.
Yes, a complex picture.
It is so like, how does all of this, like, cellular stuff actually affect how our brains function,
That's a great question.
like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so the study also looked at specific neurons that are involved in the mouse default mode
A
network,
default mode network.
which is basically the network of brain regions that's active when you're not focused on a particular task.
Okay.
So like when you're daydreaming or letting your mind wander.
So like when I'm spacing out.
Exactly.
Okay.
And these neurons, they're called L4-RSP ACA glut neurons.
Okay.
They showed a significant decrease in the expression of what are called immediate early genes.
Immediate early genes.
Yeah, and these genes are usually rapidly activated in response to new information or experiences.
Okay.
So they allow your brain to adapt and learn. And the fact that these immediate early genes aren't firing as readily in older brains could help explain why it's sometimes harder to learn new things or adapt to new situations as we age.
Okay. So our brains are just not as quick to respond
Potentially.
to new information as we get older.
It's like they're not as plastic
Okay.
or as adaptable.
Got it. This is all starting to connect in a really fascinating way.
It is.
So we've talked a lot about specific cell types and how they change with age.
Yeah.
But what about the immune system as a whole?
Yes.
How does its role in aging tie into all of this?
That's a great question, and it's an area where this study made some really intriguing findings.
Okay.
So remember how we talked about those MHCI genes?
Yeah, the ones that were in the neurons.
In the neurons, right?
Yeah.
So it turns out that's not the whole story.
Okay.
The study found increased expression of genes involved in what's called MHC antigen presentation
MHC antigen presentation.
in a variety of cell types,
Okay.
including those neurons. And MHC molecules are usually associated with immune responses.
Right.
So finding them upregulated in brain cells suggests a much more intricate relationship between the immune system and the brain
Okay.
than we previously understood.
So it's not just that our immune system is like becoming dysregulated with age.
Right.
It's actually like engaging with the brain in new ways
Exactly.
that we don't totally understand.
Right.
Wow. Okay. This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to admit, it's a lot to absorb.
It is.
What are like the big takeaways from all of this?
So I think one of the biggest takeaways is that this study paints an incredibly detailed picture of the cellular and molecular mechanisms behind brain aging.
Okay.
So we're not just talking about our brains shrinking as we get older. We're talking about the very cells within our brains changing in very complex ways.
Right.
And these changes, they impact everything from how we form new memories
Yeah.
to how we respond to inflammation.
Okay.
And it's also becoming increasingly clear that the immune system plays a central role in brain aging.
This study provides even more evidence that chronic inflammation is a major driver of age-related decline.
Right.
And it could be contributing to a lot of the cellular changes that we've been discussing.
So if we could tackle inflammation, then maybe we could slow down some of these changes.
That's the hope.
Okay.
And that's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
Because this study is just the tip of the iceberg. It's opening up a whole new world of possibilities for future research.
Okay.
It's like we've been given this roadmap to understanding brain aging at a whole new level.
Yeah.
And that roadmap could lead us to new therapies to slow down or even reverse some of these age-related changes.
So instead of just accepting that our brains will inevitably decline,
Right.
we might actually have the power to intervene
Exactly.
and maintain cognitive function for longer.
Yeah. And the study provides some tantalizing clues
Yes.
about where we might focus our efforts.
Okay. Like what?
Well, remember those hypothalamic neurons involved in nutrient signaling and satiety? The ones with the MHCI activity.
Exactly. The ones that showed that unexpected increase in MHCI activity with age.
Yeah, it was so weird to see those immune genes active in those neurons.
It was.
It made me wonder about the connection between how our bodies process food and how our brains age.
Yeah, and it turns out those neurons, along with the tannicytes and ependymal cells,
Okay.
they're all clustered around the third ventricle of the hypothalamus.
Got it.
And this area is known to play a crucial role in regulating energy balance.
Okay.
responding to hormones like leptin and ghrelin, and even influencing our circadian rhythms.
So are you suggesting that there might be a link between our metabolism, our hormone balance, our sleep cycles, and brain aging?
It's definitely an area that deserves further investigation.
Wow.
The study's findings suggest that this intricate network of cells in the hypothalamus,
Yeah.
with their unexpected immune activity,
Right.
could be a key to unlocking new strategies for healthy brain aging.
So what if we could develop interventions that specifically target these cells
Exactly.
to promote brain health as we age?
That's the idea.
That's amazing.
It's a really exciting thought.
It is. It's empowering to know that we're not just passive passengers on this aging journey, that there might be things that we can do to actively steer the course.
Absolutely. And it's not just about extending lifespan.
Right.
It's about extending what we call health span.
Health span.
The number of years that we live in good health.
Yeah.
With a sharp and vibrant mind.
I love that.
Me too.
I have to say, this whole deep dive has left me feeling incredibly optimistic.
That's great.
Learning about the complexities of brain aging
Yeah.
and knowing that researchers are making such incredible strides in understanding these processes gives me hope that we can all look forward to longer, healthier lives with our cognitive abilities intact.
I agree. I share your optimism.
Yeah.
This study is a testament to the incredible power of science to unravel the mysteries of the brain
It is.
and open up possibilities that we never thought possible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to think about the implications of this research for your own lives. What steps can you take today to support your brain health as you age?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's a question worth pondering and exploring further as we continue this incredible journey of discovery into the world of neuroscience and the quest for a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the mysteries of the world around us.
Sounds good.
So ready to dive into those cell-specific changes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so one of the most striking findings was how much endothelial cells change with age.
Endothelial cells. Remind me what those are again?
Right, so those are the cells that line the blood vessels in your brain.
Okay.
So kind of like the inner walls of the plumbing system
Gotcha.
that delivers nutrients and oxygen.
Okay, yeah. So we always hear about how important good blood flow is for brain health.
Exactly, and this study gives us some clues as to why they found that endothelial cells showed the largest number of age-related changes
Wow.
in gene expression compared to other cell types.
Really?
Yeah, so for example, they saw increased expression of a gene called RASGOF2,
RASGRF2.
which might protect against cell death,
Okay.
but they also saw an increase in HDEC9, which is linked to damage in endothelial cells.
Yeah.
So it's like there's this balance going on, right,
Right.
between protective and damaging factors.
Interesting.
They also saw changes in genes like FO1 and FMO2,
PEMA1 FMO2.
which have been associated with various neurological diseases.
Oh, so that's a little concerning.
Yeah, it highlights the fact that even though these blood vessels are so crucial for delivering all the good stuff to the brain, they themselves are vulnerable to the aging process.
Right. So even though they're delivering all the good stuff, they themselves are vulnerable.
Yeah, it's kind of a cruel irony.
Yeah.
And it's not just the endothelial cells themselves. Remember parasites?
Parasite.
Those cells that support blood vessels.
Yeah.
Well, the study found a more pronounced loss of parasites than endothelial cells in older mice.
Oh, wow. So it's like the scaffolding around the pipes is weakening.
Exactly.
Even faster than the pipes themselves.
Yeah, which could have serious consequences
Yeah. That's not
for the entire system.
not good.
So it really highlights that interconnectedness
Oh.
of everything in the brain.
Okay. So endothelial cells are definitely changing a lot with age.
Right.
What about those microglia?
Yes, the microglia. So the study revealed even more about their potential role in brain aging.
Okay.
They found specific microglia clusters that became much more common in older brains.
Okay.
And these microglias were expressing higher levels of genes involved in inflammatory responses
Oh, boy.
and pumping out inflammatory signals called cytokines.
So like they're just like creating this inflammatory environment.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Genes like ILDR2, CCL3, CCL4, and UPK1B,
Okay.
all associated with inflammation.
Wow.
They were much more active in these microglia clusters.
Okay, so inflammation is definitely a key player here.
It seems to be a major driver of these changes.
And what about the other support cells in the brain? like astrocytes.
Yes, astrocytes also exhibit age-related changes,
Okay.
but in more diverse ways.
Okay.
Some astrocyte populations showed signs of senescence,
So in essence,
which basically means they're entering a state of irreversible cell cycle arrest.
so they're basically like done.
Yeah, they've kind of hit a biological brick wall.
Okay.
Other astrocyte types displayed altered nutrient signaling,
Okay.
which could disrupt that delicate balance of energy and resources in the brain.
Interesting. Okay, so different types of astrocytes are affected by aging in different ways.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all process.
Gotcha. And what about some of those other lesser-known cell types in the brain?
Right. So there are a few others that show interesting age-related changes.
Okay.
Take tennycytes, for instance.
80 sites?
These are specialized cells that line the third ventricle,
Okay.
a fluid-filled space in the brain. And the study found an age-related decline in a particular subtype of tannycyte that might have stem cell potential.
Wait, so you're saying there might be stem cells hiding out in these tannycytes,
That's what the data suggests.
and they're declining as we age?
It appears.
So,
That's wild.
and it's particularly interesting because this decline in potential stem cells could contribute to the brain's reduced ability to repair and regenerate itself over time.
Okay, so we're losing brain cells. The ones we have are inflamed. The networks are breaking down. And even our potential for repair is diminishing.
It paints a somewhat grim picture.
It does. So how does all this like cellular stuff actually affect how our brains function like on a day-to-day basis?
Right. That's a great question. So the study also looked at specific neurons involved in the mouse default mode network,
Default mode network.
which is basically the network of brain regions that's active when you're not focused on a particular task,
Okay.
like when you're daydreaming or letting your mind wander.
So like when I'm spacing out.
Exactly.
Got it.
And these neurons, called L4-RSPACA glut neurons, okay,
Showed a significant decrease in the expression of what are called immediate early genes.
immediate early genes.
And these genes are usually rapidly activated in response to new information or experiences, allowing your brain to adapt and learn.
So like learning new things.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the fact that these immediate early genes aren't firing as readily in older brains could explain why it's sometimes harder to learn new things or adapt to new situations as we age.
So it's like our brains aren't as quick to respond to new information.
Potentially, yeah. It's like they're not as plastic or adaptable.
Gotcha. Okay. This is all starting to connect in a really fascinating way.
It is a very complex and interconnected system.
It is. We've talked a lot about specific cell types and how they change with age, but what about the immune system as a whole? How does its role in aging tie into all of this?
That's a great question. And it's an area where this study made some really intriguing findings.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about those MHCI genes?
Yeah, the ones in the neuron.
Yeah, in the neurons, right?
Yeah.
So it turns out that's not the whole story.
There's more.
The study found increased expression of genes involved in what's called MHC antigen presentation
MHC antigen presentation.
in a variety of cell types,
Oh.
including those neurons.
Interesting.
And MHC molecules are usually associated with immune responses.
Right.
So finding them upregulated in brain cells suggests a much more intricate relationship between the immune system and the brain than we previously understood.
So it's not just that our immune system is becoming dysregulated with age.
Right.
It's actually like engaging with brain cells in new and unexpected ways
Exactly.
that we don't totally understand.
Right. And that could have profound implications for how we approach age-related brain diseases.
Okay, so that's a little bit scary, but also exciting.
It is. It's like opening up a whole new avenue of research.
Right, because if we can understand how the immune system is interacting with the brain in these new ways, maybe we can find ways to intervene.
Exactly. Maybe we can develop therapies that target these interactions.
Wow. Okay, well, this is a lot to process. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. There's so much more to explore in this study.
Okay, well, I am definitely ready for more.
Okay, so much incredible information. My brain is buzzing. It feels like we've gone on this journey into the microscopic world of the brain
Yeah.
and seen aging unfold right before our eyes.
It's pretty amazing the level of detail that we can see now.
It is, but it's also a lot to process.
Right.
So, what does it all mean for us?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is that this study gives us this incredibly detailed picture of what's actually happening at the cellular and molecular level as our brains age.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about our brain shrinking or, things like that.
Right.
It's the cells themselves are
Yeah.
changing. in
Yeah.
very complex ways.
Okay.
And those changes are affecting everything from how we form new memories to how our brains respond to inflammation.
Okay, so it's like aging is this really dynamic process that's
Yes.
happening at like this super tiny scale, right? And it's not just like things are wearing out. It's
Yeah.
like these intricate processes are changing.
Got it. And what about the immune system? I feel like that's been like a recurring theme.
Yeah, definitely. This study provides even more evidence that chronic inflammation is a major driver of age-related decline,
Okay.
and it's likely contributing to a lot of those cellular changes that we've been talking about.
So like if we could tackle inflammation, then maybe we could slow down some of those
Well,
changes.
yeah, that's the hope.
Okay.
And that's where things get really exciting.
Okay. Why is that?
Because this study is really just the beginning.
Okay.
It's like opening up all these new avenues for research.
Got it.
Like we've been given this roadmap to understanding brain aging at a whole new level.
Yeah.
And that roadmap could lead to new therapies to slow down or even reverse some of these changes.
So instead of just accepting that our brains will decline as we age, we might actually be able to do something about it.
That's the idea.
Okay. What kind of things could we?
I remember those hypothalamic neurons.
The ones with the MHCI?
Exactly, the ones involved in nutrient signaling and satiety.
Yeah, those were so interesting.
Yeah, it was really surprising to see those immune-related genes active in those neurons.
Right. It made me think about like, the connection between what we eat and how our brains age.
Yeah, and it turns out those neurons, along with the tanycytes and ependymal cells, are all clustered around the third ventricle of the hypothalamus.
Okay.
And this area is known to play a crucial role in regulating energy balance,
Okay.
responding to hormones like leptin and ghrelin, and even influencing our circadian rhythms.
So are you saying that there might be a link between our metabolism, our hormone balance, our sleep cycles, and how our brains age?
It's definitely an area that deserves further investigation.
Wow.
The study's findings suggest that this network of cells in the hypothalamus could be a key to unlocking new strategies for healthy brain aging.
That's really cool. So like, what if we could develop interventions that specifically target those cells to promote brain health?
Exactly. That's the idea.
That's amazing.
It's a really exciting possibility.
It is. It makes me feel like we're not just, passive passengers on this aging journey.
Yeah.
Like there are things that we can do
Absolutely.
to actively, steer the course.
And it's not just about living longer.
Right.
It's about living healthier,
Yeah.
extending what we call health span,
Health span.
the number of years that we live in good health with a sharp and vibrant mind.
I love that.
Me too.
Okay. Well, this whole deep dive has just been so fascinating.
I agree.
I've learned so much.
Yeah, me too.
And honestly, I feel really optimistic
That's great.
about the future of aging research.
Yeah.
Learning about how complex our brains are.
Yeah.
And how scientists are making all these incredible discoveries. It gives me hope that, we can all live longer and healthier lives.
I agree. I share your optimism.
Awesome.
Yeah. This study is really a testament to the power of science to unravel the mysteries of the brain
It is.
and open up all these possibilities that we never even thought possible.
It's truly inspiring.
It is.
So to all our listeners out there, I encourage you to think about the implications of this research for your own lives.
Yeah.
Like, what can you do today to support your brain health as you age?
That's a great question.
It's definitely something worth thinking about and exploring further.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the amazing world of the aging brain.
It's been a pleasure.
It has. And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration into the mysteries of the world around us.
See you then.